My lords, today I shall cover in detail the galactic crisis that we have designated as the Prethoryn Scourge. The Prethoryn Scourge is a hive mind devouring swarm. Ravenous from their long trip through intergalactic space, they seek to consume all living matter within our galaxy. Although they make it clear that they are here to feed, it would also appear that they are fleeing from something that they refer to as the Hunters. The Scourge are unlike the other galactic level threats that we have faced, i.e. the Unbidden, the Contingency and Satana, in that the Scourge are detectable prior to their assault on our galaxy, which does give us some time to prepare. We first learned of the Scourge's existence when we picked up subspace echoes from beyond the galactic rim. At first, it wasn't clear from the readings what we had detected. Several of our tracking stations picked up peculiar subspace echoes coming from intergalactic space. The echoes were faint, but getting stronger, and were seemingly approaching our galaxy. It was several years of monitoring the echoes before we established anything substantial. As the echoes got closer to our galaxy, we began to detect several smaller contacts that appeared to be racing ahead of the main body towards a number of systems on the outer rim. Several months later, the outer rim of our galaxy was hit by an invasion force. It would appear that the source of the subspace echoes were in fact an intergalactic fleet, and this initial attack was a vanguard, the first encounter of the Scourge within our galaxy. The Scourge were able to communicate in several ways. They had an innate mind-link connection that they were able to establish with organic hive-minded species. They could communicate psionically with psionically ascended empires. And finally they spoke in clicks and gutted gurgles, which we assume given time our translation devices would be able to harness some form of meaning from. Upon entering our galaxy, the following message was picked up, transmitted between the various vanguard fleets. The message read, "Prethoryn, we have arrived. Our long journey is over. Feed, mate, and rest. We must consume this galaxy before the Hunters find us." We will touch on who or what the Hunters represent later on in this report. The vanguard of the Prethoryn Scourge fleet began to attack and consume everything within its path, and several months later the bulk of the Hive fleet arrived, but in far greater numbers than had come before. The Scourge target inhabited planets first, specifically those with a biological population living on it. They will overwhelm defensive stations and fleets with significant numbers of smaller Corvette-class vessels equipped with living weapons, ranging from living missiles to bugs that spit organic plasma. These smaller vessels appear to be directed by larger Hive craft, the largest of which we have designated a Queen. Their ships, like their weaponry, are entirely organic, but I shall cover their capabilities in detail later in the report. When they reach a non-barren planet, they will launch a ground assault upon it. Swarms of smaller bugs will land and begin to purge the organic life occupying the planet. Everything organic is consumed and repurposed to suit the swarm's needs, and the planet is soon left as a barren wasteland, teeming with Scourge bugs. This toxic nightmare can only be cleansed by fire and flame from orbit. In order to purge the Scourge presence, the planet must be bombarded into oblivion, every speck of life eradicated, and only then can one think about terraforming it back into a habitable world. As I mentioned earlier, when the Scourge entered the galaxy, we picked up communications from their vanguard fleet via psionic means, and we also know, via communication information gathered from a nearby hive mind, that they had a conversation with the Scourge via some sort of hive-minded link. Thus, we attempted communication with them via psionic means, and it went precisely the same way as the hive mind link. The transcript reads as follows: Psionic link established. It can understand. We asked, can there be peace between us? And the Scourge responded, peace, no peace. We must feed. Only when we have finished consuming this galaxy shall we depart to continue our long journey. The Hunters are death. They have made us the last of our kind, and they have hunted us, the survivors, for eons. They will come here one day, and we must feed until then so that we can flee back into the darkness between galaxies when they arrive. The Hunters will scour all of creation. You are nothing in the face of such a truth. We are the Prethoryn, and Prethoryn means survivor. There were some interesting points gathered from this conversation. The Scourge are not innately conquerors, but are in fact fleeing a race that they refer to as the Hunters. It is an obvious concern that a race as dangerous as the Scourge are fleeing something. Whatever these Hunters are, they must be truly terrifying. As the Scourge continued to push into the galaxy, their beachhead was firmly established. Every world that fell to their plague would soon begin to spawn more Scourge vessels, and soon the numbers became overwhelming. The galaxy was in turmoil, and it was at this point that we received a galaxy-wide communication from a ragtag bunch referring to themselves as the Sentinel Order. They had quite a lot to say, and the transmission read, "We are the Sentinels. Our order has sworn to halt the murderous rage of the Prethoryn, no matter the cost. Where other empires may crumble, we stand firm. Where they abandon their own to the Scourge, we will give them the means to fight back. I am Grand Master Corgus, the first of our order. Do not be deceived by my appearance. The Sentinels are recruited from all species across the galaxy, including your own. We ask only that your government keep up the fight against the Prethoryn Scourge and support the Sentinels' attacks wherever possible. Many Sentinels have military backgrounds. We are survivors from a dozen different fleets that have fought the Scourge and lost. As Sentinels, we have learned from the mistakes of the past, and we work hard to never repeat them. Also, I believe I mentioned that we recruit from all species across the galaxy. This includes the Elder races, known as the Fallen Empires. Furthermore, we have the support of several influential factions from within the Fallen Empires, who have no wish to see the galaxy devoured. They have donated both ships and resource to our cause. We have established our headquarters near Mikulor's vortex. The coordinates of this previously uncharted black hole were given to us by one of the Fallen Empires. They also aided us in the construction of Sentinel Alpha, our primary space installation, and the home port of our fleets. It is quite a remarkable achievement, if I may say so, especially given the limited time that we had. The Sentinel broadcast brings us neatly on how to defeat the Scourge. Vanguard fleets consist of 31 swarmlings. Star Brood fleets consist of 1 queen, 8 brood mothers, 10 warriors, and 35 swarmlings, and are obviously far more dangerous. Prethoryn vessels use entirely organic components. Their weapons and armor are both living, and a key point is that they have no shield components. As such, their ships are heavily armoured, and the smaller vessels have incredibly high evasive qualities. The Scourge have 3 different weapon types: the Acid Blast, which does damage to shields and appears to not have any specific bonuses to hull or armour; Scourge Missiles, which appear to be a hybrid of missile and torpedo. These penetrate shields and do scaling damage to hull depending on ship size, i.e. they do more damage to larger vessels. They are, however, somewhat countered by armour. The Scourge also have their own type of strike craft. Again, these are entirely organic. They are similar to missiles. They penetrate all shields and penetrate approximately 2/3 of armour. Since all Scourge weapons either ignore or cause major damage to shields and work equally well against armour and hull, combat fleets should protect themselves with point defense, strike craft, and armour. Use energy weapons that deal bonus damage to both armour and hull. Arc emitters also work. Arc emitter battleships equipped with hangar bays will naturally be a good mix against the Scourge fleets. Furthermore, empires which lack the means to directly counter the Scourge fleets should immediately focus on containing the Scourge expansion instead. Keeping multiple smaller fleets of corvettes or destroyers to hunt down the Scourge ground troopers and/or colony ships will drastically slow down the rate of Scourge expansion throughout the galaxy, and is indeed a viable strategy. The final few points to discuss concern niche concerns. Firstly, the rumours that empires have managed to capture and tame a Prethoryn queen. It is said that empires winning great battles against Scourge fleets have managed to isolate and capture some queens. These queens have been tamed and then used to breed loyal Scourge battle fleets. This is very intriguing if real. Secondly, is the word that feral Prethoryn have also been discovered. This is rumoured to have occurred on a planet that was once infested but since cleansed. It appears that the cleansing wasn't as thorough as required. Feral Scourge have spawned from the once infested world, but we think they are a hive of their own, unrelated to the original invasion force. We are not quite sure what that represents regarding the larger discussion of the hive mind. The very last item to discuss regarding the Scourge is the Hunters. The only solid information we have on the Hunters is from the Scourge themselves, which is hardly a trustworthy source. They state that they are fleeing from these Hunters, and this singular statement has sparked debate throughout the ages. It's important to note the use of the word fleeing. It does mean that they're likely being chased. The second key piece of information is that several decades after the Prethorians' arrival into our galaxy, we noticed that the galaxy that they had just come from has been totally eclipsed. The stars either all went out at once, or a giant object has obscured a galaxy's worth of light from view. And so, given that information, what could the Hunters be? I have 3 theories for you. The first pertains to a crisis empire attempting to ascend, resulting in the firing of the athrophasic engine. This is a possibility that should be given serious merit. It would not be unreasonable to assume other empires who delve deeply into psionics and the Shroud could go down the internal crisis route, as has happened in our own galaxy. This empire could have had the power to defeat the Scourge and send them fleeing into intergalactic space. Perhaps these fanatics were purifiers and as such gave chase. This theory is further supported by the Scourge origin galaxy going dark. It could represent the firing of the athrophasic engine. This, I think, is probably the most likely possibility, but I do have 2 more theories for you. A swarm of Stellarite Devourer-like beings. This could also be represented by Void Spawn. Effectively, I'm thinking of a massive space leviathan that eats stars. This one is largely speculation. It is possible that a swarm of, or one massive stellar devourer, and perhaps several of its children, could fall upon a galaxy to consume its stars. It would explain the darkening of the stars as they are consumed. But there is 0 evidence for this, but like many things in our galaxy, speculation fuels debate, and equally there is no evidence for it not being the case. The final theory I have for you, and one I particularly enjoy, is that perhaps the Scourge were duped by some sort of psionic being, and their galaxy darkening is simply a coincidence or a deliberate act by the con artist. This is an interesting theory, and is perhaps one of the most out of the box, and yet does have real potential for being the answer. It is entirely conceivable that a civilization who has mastered psionic abilities occupied and dominated a galaxy that was attacked by a Scourge Hive fleet, and instead of repelling them with ships and firepower, they, via psionic manipulation, implanted an image and intense fear of these so-called Hunters, effectively removing the threat from their own galaxy and making them someone else's problem. This is a marvelous theory, and one that I give great merit to. The only flaw is the lack of explanation for why the Scourge origin galaxy darkens. Perhaps the psionics are also capable of throwing up some sort of galactic psionic shield to keep them hidden. Sadly, unless we go and visit that galaxy, we will never know. And that brings this report to a close. If you want to hear about 10 Stellaris facts that you may not know about, then please click the video on screen now.